Welcome to the Evident Proof demo. My name is Matt Roden. I am the CTO of Evident. Today, I'm just going to spend around 10 minutes taking you through a brief demo of the Evident Proof platform. I'll quickly talk you through what Evident is, what our product offers, and then I'll take you through a real example workflow of storing evidence data on the Evident Proof platform into a proof seal and then generating a proof certificate. So very briefly, Evident Proof is a platform to store data in an immutable fashion. The data stored on Evident is unhackable, unchangeable, and verifiable in the way it was originally stored. Evident Proof stores proof seals of data on the blockchain. That means that the data is stored in a distributed way, which is what makes the data immutable. So why do we offer this service? It's becoming increasingly more important for organizations and individuals to be able to prove the integrity of their data and to be able to verify that their data has not been changed or tampered. And the kind of scenario that this might occur in is let's reference one of our real clients. So we have a client who manufactures safety equipment. They have a big problem with counterfeit products, and they need to prove, often in a litigation scenario, that a product that is counterfeit was not in their supply chain. How can they do this? How can they prove that the data on their systems reflects the true data and that data hasn't been changed? Well, they can use Evident Proof. Data is submitted to the Evident Proof platform from their systems via our APIs. The data is sealed into proof seals stored on a blockchain, and we can give them at the end of this process a proof certificate that can be taken to a court of law, which proves beyond doubt that the data was stored in the way they said it was stored, when they said it was stored, to the exact schema, the exact data points, and that's it. So they get a document out the other end, which proves all of this. So pretty great. So what I'm briefly going to do is take you through an example scenario that we have. This does represent a real client of ours. We have a client who is the largest supplier of taxi licensing solutions to the UK government, local governments in the UK, and they have a requirement to prove the workflow of issuing a taxi license out to a UK taxi driver, prove that all the checks and balances were indeed done in issuing that license, criminal record checks, so on and so forth. Why is this so important? Well, only 2 months ago in The Guardian, there was an article that came out that said 150,000 taxi licenses were issued in the UK last year to people with criminal convictions, driving bans, drink driving offences, you name it, they had it. Would this have happened if a proper audit trail was placed on the evidence service and the data was stored in an immutable way? No, it wouldn't. And so we can't show you their full systems. Of course, they have a large line of business solution. What we can show you is a trimmed down example of their workflow. We'll just show you one workflow, which is the basic creation of a taxi license. We'll show you after that workflow is complete, we'll show you that data having been submitted into the Evident Proof API and stored as a proof seal on the blockchain. And then we'll show you how one would request a proof certificate to verify that that data was stored in an immutable way. So just very briefly, I've spoken a lot about APIs, why our API is important to the Evident Proof platform. Evident Proof is offered as a service. So we have a service layer as an API, a web service, and data is submitted to the Evident Proof API using our API endpoints, and to access that endpoint, you need an API key. You can generate an API key by clicking on this button on the platform. You get a key and a secret. You get the API endpoint. You go and look at our API documentation, and you can start submitting evidence data to the Evident Proof platform, please feel free to contact anyone at Evident Proof for this access. So I'll start off going through this taxi licensing example. So here you can see we have a trimmed down version of the demo of the system, the taxi licensing system. And so I'm going to go and create a new taxi license. So I'm going to put in a name. Let's think of one that I haven't done before. Obviously, I do a lot of demos. So there we go, David Tom. We're going to say that his license is active. We're going to say that we performed a criminal record check. Of course, in the main line of business solution that our client has, they would upload evidence that a criminal record check has performed, a criminal record check was performed. That evidence would be a document or an API call, and of course, using the Evident Proof platform, you can submit many proof points to the platform for any piece of evidence. So we're going to put in driving license number. Of course, on the real solution, it wouldn't just be a driving license number. There would be evidence of that driving license, be it a scan of the actual driving license itself, or some kind of other checks and balances to do with that license. An identity check has been performed. Again, we would upload a proof point to say, here is the identity check documentation. And we're going to say there are no driving offences. So let's click create. And David Tom is who I just created. So I'm going to go back to the Evident platform. I am going to look at our proof seals. And here you can see David Tom. This is who I created. Now, what I'm going to do now is talk you through what a proof seal looks like, what evidence looks like, and then we'll go through the process a bit more. So you can see that here we submitted a dispatch. This is a dispatch of evidence. We have a timestamp. We have a where. This can be an IP address or a geolocation. We have an ID associated with the dispatch. The evidence itself has a PSU cross-reference. What is that? It's a compound key that links back to the raw data in your database. This is how we relate evidence to real data, be it an asset or an event or a transaction. A key, this is a key of your choosing. Evident Proof does help with this process to identify what evidence and proof looks like to your organization. And then a value. Here you can see that we have a JSON value that represents the values we chose in the taxi license application. This could be a single field. It could be the works of Shakespeare. It really doesn't matter. What matters to us is that this data condenses down to a seal. A seal is effectively a hash of your data. This hash is what allows us to prove that the data was stored at the time we said it was, in the format we said it was. So we include the timestamp, the location, the IDs, and all of the data, and it reduces down into this hash. This hash is how we get back to a proof certificate later on. The hash is stored on the blockchain in a distributed way. It makes the data immutable, unchangeable, unhackable, untamperable. And so we can take that distributed data, which is the seal, and we can show that that seal represents the data you said was stored, and thus we can issue a proof certificate. So let's move on to the proof certificate workflow. When the data was stored on the platform, we gave you back via the API and via this user interface a receipt. A receipt is what allows you to reference the evidence of the data stored on the Evident Proof platform. We recommend you store this receipt ID against the transactional data on your database, but should you not wish to do that, you can just access it from the user interface. Given that receipt and given the Evident Proof token that is returned to you when data is stored, you can request a proof certificate. Now, tokens are pretty fundamental to our platform and the utility of our platform. Probably today's demo, we keep them short, so it's not the right time to talk about tokenization. If anyone has any questions, they can read our white paper or contact myself or Adrian Clark or Brian McClafferty for more information on the tokenization within our platform. So now we're just going to complete the workflow by requesting a proof certificate. So let's imagine in the case of a taxi license, where a year down the line, someone is disputing that that driver should have ever been issued with a taxi license, and we now need to prove that we did all of our checks and balances at the time we said we did and in the way we said we did. And so at this point, we need a document that we can take to a court of law that proves this beyond doubt. So I'm going to request a new proof certificate, and you can see here I've got a request ID, I've got a time that I sent the request, and you can see I've used agree to ask me at any point on Telegram about tokenization. I'd be more than happy to take you through it. So now we can go and view our certificate, and I'll talk you through what is in a certificate. So within a certificate is all of the evidence and the dispatch data that we previously looked at, our receipt, our request for a proof certificate, a flag to say whether or not the evidence was verified against the seal on the Ethereum blockchain. We use a private chain and a public chain. Please do ask me about that on Telegram. And then you can see that we have a transaction ID, which is our link back to the transaction on the distributed blockchain network that allows us to verify that this data was stored immutably. Okay, that's a wrap. That's our demo for today. Our next one is on Tuesday next week, 10 a.m. UK time. Please feel free to ask me any questions. In the meantime, I'm Matt Roden, CTO of Evident.